The Final Frontier. These are your adventures as you explore, seeking out new life and civilizations, expanding your borders and exploiting the resources you find, befriending allies, or exterminating the foes that get in your way.
Contact detected entering sector. Configuration unknown. Assessing. Initiating countermeasures.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name is Tony. Thank you for joining us here on Saturday at 11 o'clock Pacific time, or whatever it is, your local. If you're catching us on the replay, thank you so much for taking the time. If you like all things Star Trek, turn-based strategy, and or just galactic conquest 4X strategy play, then this is the channel for you. We play a game called Federation and Empire, or rather, we play a turn-based war game campaign inspired by the rule set of Federation and Empire. The magic of the map that you will see here momentarily is produced through Vassal. And of course, we walk you through every week. We talk about the turns, the evolutions of what's going on, and the galactic drama between the role play, the diplomacy, the actual combat, and what is going on. What are we going to be talking about today? Well, today we're talking about the shrinkage, shall we say, of the Borak Empire. It continues to contract, at least in the north. On the other flip side of that coin, it continues to expand in the south. If you have been following along, then you know the Battlestar Galactica-inspired journey that the Borak are on, and we'll follow that up. As well, we have some interesting interactions between the Tholians and the Kzinti, the Tholians and their neighbors to the north, the Klingons, and of course, we have our mystery Andromedans that are coming and going as they see fit. All of this we'll be discussing today in Star Trek New Worlds. But without going too much further, I want to give a big shout out to our friends over at Resurrected Starships. Oh, wrong one. There we go. That's a little bit better. So Resurrected Starships just recently released a video where they gave us a quick shout out. We've been working with Alan over at Resurrected Starships to create some animations to make the channel look a little nicer, prettier, and so on, or just change things up because change is good. And so our good friend Alan over at Resurrected Starships has a new video. I am picking the wrong screen here. There we are. Has a new video, Star Trek versus Eve, which he gives a little narrative story about the Starship Enterprise interacting with some ships from the world of Eve. So if you haven't already had a chance to check out his channel, please head over there and check it out after today's live stream. It might be worth a gander. But without further ado, let's head over to the Galactic News. That's right. Welcome to GNN News. If it's not true, we're not telling. There was shrinkage. The borders of the original Borak Empire continue to shrink. In the northeast, the ISC have moved and occupied a planet and 2 resources, leaving only a narrow corridor for the Borak to withdraw before being completely isolated. In the northwest, the Cardavan Navy has captured a Borak base station and restarted their inexorable move forward towards the Borak capital. Even the Lyrans are driving a wedge into the western Borak border stations. How long can the Borak keep their core systems intact and feeding the war of occupation in the south? Well, we won't have to wait long to find out. Guard, turn, parry, dodge. Borak forces continue to chip away at the Paravian Empire, dismantling its resources and infrastructure as fast as supply allows. But the war isn't entirely one-sided. The Paravian Navy has mounted a counteroffensive against the Borak. Battles have raged over the former homeworld. For the moment, the devastated world of Paravia is back in their possession. But this existential showdown is far from over. It is a duel to the death, and it's anyone's guess who will win in the end. And now, a word from our sponsor. Attention galactic citizens, are your pipes plugged, faucets failing, baths backed up? Need a plumbing solution that's positively perfect? Look no further! Introducing Pirate Pete's Plasma Plumbing. Plasma power for perfect pipes. With Pirate Pete's Plasma Plumbing, you'll never have to worry about plumbing problems again. Our cutting-edge plasma technology effortlessly clears clogs, unseals sinks, and ensures your pipes are running smoother than Harry Mudd's confidence schemes. Our highly skilled pirate plumbing professionals are equipped with the latest in plasma tools, ready to tackle any plumbing predicament. Follow along with me. Scales stopping up your sinks? Plasma Plumbing. Feathers fouling your flows? Plasma Plumbing. Hair hampering your hyperspace hydro flange? Plasma Plumbing. From mud huts to mansions, starships to space stations, no job is too big, no fee is too big. And remember our motto, you won't have gripes when you have a pirate in your pipes. Call 1-800-PLASMA and let us work your pipes today. And we're back. Rocks and cats living together? Contact has finally been established between the Tholian and Kzinti empires. While the neutral zone was negotiated many years ago via Zoom meetings, these two species had never met face to face. This year, survey ships have cleared the way for civilian navigation. Will this be a new opportunity for commercial cooperation or a corridor for combat? Only time will tell. Going green. As suddenly as the strange invaders known as the Andromedans appeared on the scene, they have now vanished just as mysteriously. Klingon military forces had mustered to confront these unwelcome guests when sensors lost track of them as they accelerated to impossible speeds. Ludicrous speeds! Some have speculated that these visitors are part of a secret military experiment being conducted by one of the galactic powers. Others postulate that a recent rash of fringe scientists have gifted students going missing all over the galaxy may be somehow connected. Maybe these geniuses know something the rest of us don't. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has been the Galactic News. All right, welcome back to our wonderful backdrop with the space station November Whiskey 1, New Worlds 1, and we're just sitting here watching the ships go by. Thank you to Alderfreck, our latest subscriber. Since Resurrected Starships did our quick shout out, our subscriber count has climbed significantly in a short period of time, passing our 400 goal for the month of July, and we're on our way, on our track to get to 500. Why is 500 so important? Well, if you know anything about YouTube, 500 and 1,000 are some major milestones when it comes to sort of advancing your channel forward, and we're on our way there. Can we get to 500 before the end of August? Only time will tell. Your help required, of course, as we go forward. For those of you who are wondering, we talked about the exciting news that's going on in the galaxy today. One of the major milestones that we'll be discussing here shortly is the advance of technologies, and another faction in the game has reached M-Tech. Now, we previously identified that they had reached M-Tech before, but we'll be looking at some of their M-Tech ships that have been deployed and talk about what that's going to mean for the rest of the galaxy, whether it's will friends still be friends, or will the stress of this great cosmic power will be too much to keep alliances together, and rather will they fracture apart, causing conflict wherever the M-Tech finds you. We'll see. In the meantime, we're going to slide into the latest economic data so you can track along how everyone's growing, and you can see the graph. Here we go. Welcome to the land of economies. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. To the left of me, or to the side of me over here, there we are, that way, you will see the ranking of our current economies. The Paravians, once great, noble, economic giants of the Galactic South, are now at 53 at the bottom of the barrel, obviously because of the current conflict that is going on in their territory. The Tholians, as you can see, 72. The Iocene and the Lyrans, practically neck and neck, only 1 EP separating. The Borak, due to their gains in the south, are advancing their economy up to 86, just behind the Hydrans. And of course, the Kzinti, the Borak, and the Hydrans all in close proximity together. The Federation, the Carnies, and the Klingons in a category all their own, which is clearly illustrated in our graph. All right, so as you can see in the graph here, we're taking it from turn 51 forward to today, and you can see the progression as we've been going. Note the orange line that continues to drop. That is our good friends, the Paravians down south, and of course the not exponential, but certainly significant climb of the Klingons, the black on top, as they continue to go up and up and up. Followed closely by the Carnivons, I should say, and of course the Federation are sort of leading the pack of the rest of us as they sort of try and keep up as a member of the top three. But that's where the economies stand today. What do you think is the greatest and most significant impact to any one particular faction's economic success? We'll have to jump to the map to find out more, but before I do that, let's slide into the chat and say hello to everybody who's joined us today. Here we go. Oh yeah, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the chat is there we are on that side, is rolling away up and down like you can't believe. Okay, let's say hello. We had at the very beginning of today's live stream, we had some questions, so we're going to be talking about technology. I'll do that here in a moment, talking about the technology in the game and how it sort of balances out and how things work. Lost Muskrat is here. Hey ho, Smitty, Devin Dean, good afternoon. Who else do we have here? George Forknell has joined us. Hey yo, what's going on? Big Slow Target, BSG, or Big Klingon player. As we sliding down Big Slow Target, at least 3 empires, have deployed M-Tech now. This is true. M-Tech is coming hard and fast, everybody. Let's talk about what M-Tech is. So the question had been, can we have a discussion about, or an explanation for, the different technology milestones or levels in the game, and talk about the tech tree. So when it comes to the tech tree, our tech tree is rather complicated, so I think that is a pre-recorded or a recorded video that we'll have to put together in the future. But as far as the different tech milestones, here it is. In this game, there are 4 major tech milestones. There is W, Y, M, and GW. Now remember that this game, inspired by Federation Empire itself is a tabletop war game created in the 1980s. And so if you want to think of Axis and Allies on steroids, or maybe Risk really amped up, you've got a board in front of you and counters and units you're going to put on the board. In that game, the era that you play in is called GW, or the General War. And that is sort of the most advanced levels of technology that you can find. And if you were thinking about the General War is sort of late TOS, just before the motion picture kind of era of technology. It's the closest metaphor I can find with regards to these technologies. So in the general war, you have the late Kirk era Enterprise just about to be refit up to the motion picture version of the Enterprise. And of course, all the technologies that exist there. If we go back a little bit further, one step, we go from GW down or back in time to the M era or the middle era. And the middle era is more like the early eras of Christopher Pike, the first generation of advanced ships that have been introduced. So the very first christened Enterprise or Constitution class Enterprise that was out there. Perhaps the USS Constitution. And then before that are the quote-unquote early eras of Y and then W. So going from start to finish, it goes W, Y, M, and GW. We started off the game in W and have advanced forward. Most of the factions in the game are currently in the Y era with, as Big Slow Target has identified, a number of factions have advanced to M tech, or that middle era. And so we're going to see some of those ships as they come out. But basically, the idea is that there are tech milestones that unlock different kinds of units and ships that you can use in the game. The more advanced you go down that road, the more potent and powerful these vessels can be. And of course, you unlock certain sort of quote-unquote special abilities as you go down. One of the biggest notable changes between the early eras of W and Y and the later eras of M and GW is that M and GW ships, for the most part, with very few exceptions, move at 6 hexes for their operational movement. Whereas W moves 3, Y moves 4, and then M is the sort of kickstart to the speedy era, shall we say, where ships can move 6 hexes at a time. So do your other technologies, do they track to the point where you can support those things? There are certain laundry list items that are involved in those tech milestones, but not everything. So for example, if you are reaching the M era of technology, there is still a chain or tree of technology that is around supply or around building bases or different kinds of logistical and command and control. And so there's complementary but not critical technologies that are essential for reaching those milestones, but they certainly complement and make it sort of more potent for you to be able to use those new shiny units that you've got in M or GW. So we'll talk about that as we go forward. In future live streams, we'll talk about perhaps the introduction dates or the normal times that these ships will be introduced and sort of how that manifests for different factions and how we go forward. Hopefully that answered your question when it comes to the different eras of tech. Again, just as a summary, it starts with the W, heads to the Y. Middle era is our level 3 tech, and our top level of technology is GW. Now, for those of you who are deep in the weeds for all things ADB, Starfleet battles, and F&E, you know that there is actually one before W, but we won't talk about that today because it doesn't really apply to the game we're playing in the moment. So, with that said, how does that answer your question? While you're answering that, let's slide over to the map and talk about one of our good friends that just hit MTech, the Lyrans. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the map. All right, here we are. We have, as you can see, we're in the top of the map, and we're going to scroll down to our good friends, the Lyrans, and talk about their current situation when it comes to technology. But just before I jump into that, let's do a quick recap of, and why can I not see the tab for it? Fleet cap. There we are. So fleet cap is the numerical tracking of all the different ships that you are putting forth or putting out into the universe. So, for example, the Borak right now, as you can see at the top. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, a coffee has been fired. If you are interested in sending us a coffee, then you can head to the pinned comment in the chat or coffee.com/New Worlds. You can see that link over in the corner over there. And you can fire us as well. A photon fire of caffeinated goodness keeps us prepped and ready to go when it comes to giving you the most recent, current, and exciting information from the map. Let me take a quick sip. Lost Muskrat has fired a photon. Thank you, Lost Muskrat, for that caffeinated jolt to keep us excited. All right, let's get back on track here when it talks about the fleet cap. So you can see here, I've highlighted the Borak at the very top. The Borak have a total of 65 SE. Those are ship equivalents. Those are the number of units counted as ships in this game. So 65 of them floating around in deep space. When you combine them all, they have a total attack factor of 88 and defense factor of 241. FC is fleet cap, and you can notice that the defense factor, 241, is different than 250. That usually indicates that there are ships that are crippled. Fleet cap is calculated based on the uncrippled defense factors of the ship equivalents, and 241 is the current defense factors, probably including a couple of crippled ships. I know that there are some, so that's how we're looking. So the Borak, 65 ships, 88 attack, 241 defense. The Carnivons with a mammoth, 206. Oh my God, that is nearly, not quite, but nearly 4 times as many ships as the Borak, with a total attack factor of 461. Oh my God, and 836 defense factors, fleet cap 839. Our good friends, the Federation, the boys in blue, at 76 ship equivalents, 168 attack, 303 defense, with a fleet cap matching. The Hydrants, the green guys in the corner, have a total of 95 ships. Creeping again. Oh, my nose is itchy. Creeping towards 100 with 95, 203 attack, 392 defense, fleet cap 394. Our friends the IC in the Northeast have 80 ship equivalents with 197 attack, 353 defense, fleet cap 359. The Klingons, the number 1 economy in the game, the number 2 navy in the game, have a total number of ships at 148. They have a total attack factor of 499, defense of 702, fleet cap 705. Interesting to compare the Klingons with the Carnies. So the Carnies have more ships, 148 for the Klingons, 206 for the Carnivon. But notice the difference in attack and defense factors. The Klingons have more attack factors at nearly 500 at 499. The Carnivon have 461 total attack factors. But the defense factors flips. So the defense factors for the Klingons at 702 and the Carnies at 836. So interesting to see that in the M era, the Klingon ships are, shall we say, over-indexing on attack factors relative to defense. So you'll notice that sort of change over time, with the attack factor going up significantly, the defense factor not as much. Our good friends, the Kzintis, the space tigers of this universe, have a total of 82 ships in formation, 177 total attack factors, 315 defense, fleet cap 333. The Lyrans, growing by leaps and bounds, the third faction, the fourth faction with over 100 ships. They are the number 3 navy in the game, it would seem, with 121 total ships, 295 attack, 531 defense, with a fleet cap of 537. Our Paravian friends down below have a total of 23 ships with 52 attack, 122 defense. Interesting to note, the Paravians have about a third of the ships as the Borak, their current belligerent, but their attack factors hit noticeably higher than the ship count might imply, or maybe the Borak are hitting under, who knows. But 52 attack with only 23 ships versus 88 attack with 65 ships, it's quite the difference. And of course, their defense is 122. Our good friends, the Tholians, the rocks in a hard place, they are 103 total ships, the fourth faction to break the 100 ship count, with 172 total attack, 452 defense. Interesting. So 452 defense, fleet cap of 453. And that, my friends, is the fleet cap. Let's dial in on our good friends, the Lyrans. I say that with a little bit of jest, as they are currently sort of shrinking the Borak territory. But as you can see here, we're going to walk around their empire, see what they're doing, and then we're going to highlight those M-class ships. All right, so if we go to the far left here, we will see that there are a number of W and YSRs. These are survey ships exploring the fog of war. Now, if I take away the ships real quick, you'll notice there is a base here providing them supply. Interesting to note the range at which they're at. 1, 2, 3, 4. We already knew this, but just to confirm, the Lyrans have 4 supply. And of course, these ships, pushing to the edge of that supply in order to be able to explore this fog of war hex. As we go around the top, we can see a convoy. Looks like they are they building bases? Oh, whoops, wrong one. No, there's a base right there. I wonder what this convoy is going to do. Are they going to move further down and build more bases? That would be my guess. We go over the top. We can see very few ships, just some exploration vessels doing their thing. And, of course, the big concentration over in this top corner. Oh, my goodness gracious me. So as let's go over the top and head towards the Romulan concentration here, you can see that we have here on this hex a Y-era space dock with 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 frigates, a light cruiser, and a heavy dreadnought. The heavy dreadnought being the 6 attack, 8 defense, command factor of 10. We have the ships in place, preventing any blockage of supply. And then you can see here on this base, we have 2 tugs. It would seem both tugs. So we have a tug with 10 EP, a theater transport with 4 EP embarked, and that's it. And then, of course, we have home fleet, which for the Lyrans, if you recall, is their big, bad fleet. Here it is. Heavy dreadnought commanding, 3 command cruisers supporting, 3 heavy cruisers, and a total of 15 light cruisers. Holy Dinah. 3 attack, 5 defense for these bad boys. Wowzers. Then they also have the destroyers, 7 of which, and the frigates, 16. So unbelievable number of ships for the 3rd largest navy in the game. Pretty impressive. All right, so that's there. And then, of course, if we shrink that down a bit, we've got some ships in this neck of the woods. So this is what we were talking about in the news, poking into the territory of the Borak. We have frigates and light cruisers, a small fleet here with Silver Moon in and around the area. Let's go to Silver Moon. Where are you? Dark Storm, White Stripes, Black Stripes, Silver Moon. Okay, here we are. So Silver Moon is a light cruiser and a frigate, along with another light cruiser. So 2 light cruisers and a frigate, a couple frigates, and then, of course, we have the concentration of ships here. All right. Let's scroll down, and you can see that we've got, as we go further down, we've got a commercial convoy. Interesting to note here, a Y-era commercial convoy would say YCOM. So this is a M-era commercial convoy, and the difference with that is that it moves 2 hexes at a time. So they've got that going on. Tug building a base, as we can see here. If we take away the ship, going to be completing that base very shortly. Survey ships exploring the space, and of course we have this YDK plug in the block right in the neutral zone. Interesting, or right on the other side of the neutral zone. Interesting to see. And then as we move further up, we've got at the homeworld Foremost Fleet, and this is where the goodies are hidden. Foremost Fleet. Woo! Okay. So what do we see here? We see 2 command cruisers of the Y era. Note that a command cruiser in the Y era is a 4 attack, 6 defense for the Lyrans. Compare that to their CAM. This is a M era cruiser. So we have certain certain designators when it comes to different ships. You have the YCC or WSR, by example. That indicates the Y and W era technology for those ships. When we get to the M era, many of these ships, instead of being an MCA, it is a CA lowercase m. Later in the M era, that M, depending on how advanced or how quickly they advance, the particular faction advances through the varying technologies on the M era, there may be a version of this ship without the little m. And certainly in GW, you will see that. So CAM is an early M era cruiser. And as you can see here, it is a 7 attack, 8 defense ship. Interesting to note about the CAMs, and of course, any of the ships with the M designator, they can move 6 hexes in a single turn versus the 4 of the Y ships. So we've got a CAM, a CLM, so a light cruiser, 2 M-era destroyers. Interesting to note, the M-era destroyers are more potent than the Y-era light cruisers, which I think is interesting. And of course, 3 frigates of the M-era. So their frigates look like they are 3 4s, respectively. So 3 4s for the frigates, 4 5s for the destroyers, 5 6s for the light cruisers and 7/8 for the heavy cruisers, and then gives you the gambit. Now, as they advance further on in their technology and sort of work through their list of ships, they will unlock different sort of like command cruisers and other variants of these ships as you go further. But at the very beginning of MTech, once you get it, you get the sort of the vanilla menu items as far as the frigates, destroyers, light cruisers and cruisers and so on. We can also see that they've got a scout here. This is an M-era scout, so it is a 2 attack, 5 defense. I don't know what the EW rating is on scouts, and why do I say EW? So if you've watched our combat tutorial in the playlist on this channel, the tutorial playlist on this channel, then you'll know about EW, electronic warfare. Now, different units have different power levels when it comes to EW. Famously, the Federation, affectionately known as the Lollipop, but the Scout for the destroyer-based Scout that the Feds have, has one of the most powerful EW ratings in the game. I think it can pump out as high as 4 EW. As Bill says, tap the like button. So they have that level of EW. I don't know whether this scout at this early era of the game, I'm not sure if it's a SC or SCM or whatever the unit should be, but I don't know if the early M era, that is, scout, whether it has a full 4 or only 2 or maybe just 1. It depends on the platform it's built on. And based on the iconography, it looks like it's based on the destroyer and or frigate hull, which would mean that it probably has a lower power level. So I'm going to guess 2. But Chuck, who is our Lyran player, let us know, what does the SC, the Scout for the early M era, what kind of power level does it have for EW? Can it pump out 2, 3, 4? You let us know what that does. So again, if you want to find out the effects of EW in combat, check out our combat tutorial in the playlist below, and you'll find out how all combat works in this game. But yeah, here we are. M-era ships deployed by the Lyrans. Booyah. Now, I'm going to take a slightly different turn here. I'm going to go straight down to their neighbors, the Kzinti, because I feel like the Kzinti are on the verge, if not have discovered, MTech themselves. Let's take a look. What do they have in this area? Okay, if we look at the top of the top of their space, we can see a number of things. First of all, the thing that gets my attention is this hex right here. Notice the crippled ships, crippled cruiser, crippled frigates, and then, of course, there is Duke fleet. So let's look at Kzinti Duke fleet and see what's going on. We have a Dreadnought, 3 command cruisers, a Y-era CA. Interesting that the different hull types. And then, of course, we have a bunch of drone frigates, basically missile boats, that are accompanying it. Now, why would they be crippled? Well, it looks like they attacked the Riemann faction right here. We'll look at the minor. Where are you? Minor fleets. Minor empires. Oh my God, there's so many minor empires. And this was Atlanta fleet, so you can see that here. And you can see, wow, look at this. They have 2 crippled destroyers of 4. They have all of their 5 frigates crippled. And then, of course, they still have uncrippled cruiser, command cruiser, and dreadnought, along with their YDK and 4 planetary ground bases. So it looks like the Kzinti have engaged in some over-the-border warfare with the minor faction Riemanns here. Very, very interesting. Of course, if we look at them, interesting that they're indifferent. I would think they're hostile or hateful of the H-. Of the Kzinti. So we'll have to see what happens there. The other minor faction in the area, the Vudar here at Orbital, that's the name of the planet, with Ghost Fleet, they are friendly to the Kzinti, and you can see they've got nothing going on here. Ghost Fleet, if we look back at the minors, so, minor. If we go to Ghost Fleet, which is down here, we can see a Y commercial convoy, 6 frigates, 3 destroyers, a light cruiser, and a command cruiser. Not nearly as upset as the as the Riemanns. So the Kzinti continue to do all their scouting abouting, as the case would be, And let's look at Prince Fleet. What's going on in Prince Fleet? I feel like Prince Fleet. Oh, YCC with the diplomat, improving the attitude of that planet, it would seem. Lots of exploration happening out on the this side of the map, just by my head here. So we can see there's another Riemann faction here, which is indifferent to the Kzinti, don't care one way or the other. An Orion base, an auxiliary battle cruiser that's just sort of hanging out. Interesting to see. And what else we've got? That's pretty much it. Here's the point of contact between the rocks in a hard place, the Tholians, and our kitty cats, the Kzinti. And we have Fifth Fleet, that is, as we remove the ships, they have broken through the fog of war and they have established direct contact with the Kzinti. We can see, we'll get to the Tholians in a bit, but we can see their Fifth Fleet consists of a large exploration freighter, and an escort destroyer. All right. And so there we are. We're just exploring the space that they have within their borders, moving as fast and as hard as they can. So that's the Kzinti and the Lyrans. Let's take this opportunity as we, I'll shift my head to the other side so you can see. As we zoom out, for those of you who are new joining us, you can see this is the big map. So the Klingons at the top, the Carnarvon with the green and yellow in the middle. The yellow in the top corner is the ISC. The blue here is the Borak, and you can see there's a blue down here in the red. That is also the Borak. The Lyrans in yellow and green. The Kzinti in the white and black. Federation in blue and black. And then, of course, the Tholians in the far corner red, and the Hydrans in the far corner green. So let's zoom in and spend some time talking about our friends the Tholians before we talk about the Hydrans, and then we'll get into the conflict-oriented factions. All right, so as we can see here, we have basically a bunch of exploration happening on the fringes. Small exploration freighter here and here, large one here. Survey fleet looks like they have built a base, and they will probably be further exploring in this general direction. Boulder Force doing the same. Looks like we have survey and logistics happening concurrently here, which is excellent. So lots of that going on, and of course pushing through the neutral zone with the Kzinti. But where the interesting things are is over here on the far side. We've got Home Fleet, First Garrison, Fourth Fleet, and if we take away the ships, you can see we have two bases that are on the verge of completing. The 101 Spring and the 101 Fall, two YDKs that are going to complete. So let's look at Home Fleet, First Garrison, and Fourth Fleet for the Tholians and see what's going on. So we have Fourth Fleet, Tholian garrisons. Pull up the garrison here. We'll put Fourth Fleet underneath. It was the First Garrison, right? Yes. Okay, so we'll put that there. And then the last one is Home Fleet. Where are you? There we are. Boom. Okay. So this is the concentration of ships that are on the border here, or on the wormhole here, waiting sort of to go through or prevent anything from coming through. So what do we got? 2 exploration freighters. That isn't going to do anything. 2 destroyer escorts, not really going to do anything. The 2 groups of CPCs. Now, these are basically the tugs that are building the YDKs. So that's why those 2 groups are there. The big thing is Home Fleet. Now, what is Home Fleet? Home Fleet is 6 cruisers. Now, Tholian cruisers are a little bit weaker than other ships. They are 3 attack, 6 defense. So keep that in context. We have the... Wow, that's a lot of destroyers. 33 destroyers. Total attack of 66, 165. We have 5 patrol craft, and then a whole bunch of tugs. Wow. A total of 15 of these CPC tugs. As you can see, very weak, all things considered. They have a 1.5 attack and 3 defense. Basically the same as the patrol craft. So when we look at the total compot for Home Fleet, and I'll just pull up this particular menu to illustrate my point. So Compot just shows you the total attack and defense factors in a particular fleet, and then, of course, the number of ships in that fleet as well. So let's expand this a little bit and drop that. Okay, so with the ships that we're talking about here, and I'll find it here, Tholian Garrison, Tholian Fleet, Tholian Home Fleet. Where are we going to find all the numbers? Will be first. Let's see if we can find Tholian Home Fleet. Tholian Home Fleet. Boop. There we are. So Tholian Home Fleet has a total of 60 ships, 110 attack factor, and 264 defense. So remember those numbers. 60 total ships, 110 attack, 264 defense. Now, as we scroll up here real quick, what's on the other side of that wormhole? It is our good friends, the Klingons, and they have the Tholian border squadron guarding. So this is the Mexican standoff that is going on. Tholian border squadron, and that is the Klingon fleet that is on the other side. And of course, they have on the other side, they have a YDK as well. Now, for our convenience, they are named in a very similar fashion. So Tholian border squadron's right here. It also has 60 total ships, but notice the difference in attack factor. 236 total attack factor versus the Tholians' 110. The defense factors are 269 versus the Tholians' 264. So you could argue ship to ship, as far as like numbers go, they're very equally matched. They have similar defense factors. The difference is the Klingons' attack factor is far more significant. Now, why is that? Well, they have some pretty big ships. They have a battleship, the only faction in the game to have a battleship, the B4B. This is, for those of you who don't already know, the B4B is a Y era or early era battleship. It's the B4. But the B is the refit of this ship with M era weapons. So it's a bit of a hybrid. It has M era weapons, which gives it its 12 attack and 14 defense and shields, but it only has Y era engines, which means it can only move 4 hexes at a time. So it has constrained movement, but boy, is it a hard target. 12 attack, 14 defense, and you compare that to the Y era dreadnought, which is the C4, and the C4 is a 6 attack, 8 defense. So quite literally, not quite on defense factors, but the battleship is twice as potent as the dreadnought of the same era. Very, very crazy. We also have a total of 7 early M era cruisers. So this is the D6M. The D6M is the early era cruiser in the M era for the Klingons. They have a Y era cruiser, the D4. They have a total of 13 hot rod frigates. They are the zooped up M era escort ships or frigates for the Klingons, and they are 4 attack, 3 defense. They also have a bunch of Y era destroyers, arguably one of the best ships in the game, especially for its era. The F4 with a 3 attack, 4 defense, and he's got 34 of those in that hex. He's also got a scout. The D6EM is technically a survey ship, but it has scout functions. I believe it has 2 EW of EW capability, and all that means is in the M era, depending on his level of technology, he will be able to nullify an EW advantage when attacking the Tholians if they have a base, or at the very least, so either nullify the advantage or reduce it to an insignificant amount. I don't think a D6M is going to be able to overpower even a YDK for EW, though. So that's what that looks like. 60 ships on either side, over double the attack factor for the Klingons, and a very similar number for defense factors for each of these guys. So very interesting to see the dynamic between these two different factions. So we talked about the Tholians. We've talked about this wormhole. We'll come back to the Klingons here in a second, but I want to take a memento. Let's move my head to the other side and talk about our good friends, the Hydrans. Now, the Hydrans are in their exploration phase. As you can see, pushing up to the boundary of their neutral zone that they've established with the Paravians. You can see they've sent a Paravian commercial convoy for the Paravians to establish trade. They're working on that piece now. And as we scroll up, we can see lots of exploration happening in these arms of explored space as they're moving up and up and up. We can see they're establishing trade or looking to establish trade with the Federation as they have a commercial convoy en route to the Fédération. And of course, we have some little visitors, an auxiliary battleship here, an Orion pirate base up here. And let's just take a look. What do they got here? They've got a bunch of Y convoys. So these are commercial convoys. Interesting that they're all... Oh, no, sorry. These are not commercial convoys. My mistake. These are convoys that they've used to bank money, which is interesting. So an interesting little tweak or thing about the game is that they are using convoys, and some other folks are using tugs, but convoys can carry 20 EP. So they've got 3 convoys here, and I imagine they might have as many as 20 EP each, which means they've banked 60 EP. Why is that important? Because from the economic status of the game, there are 3 economic states. One is peacetime, one is wartime, and the third in the middle is limited war. During wartime, you get access to all of the money that you collect in the game. Your gross is your actual to spend. So if you have an economy of, for example, we talked about the Borak at 86.5, so I think the Hydrans are at 87. So their 87 economy, they have access to all 87 EP or points to spend when they're at war. When they're at peace, they get access to half of it. So instead of 87, they'd be 43.5. And in limited war, you get 75% of that EP. I can't do that math off the top of my head, but all right, let me try. So 80 would be 60, and the 7 would be something like 5. So let's call it 65-ish EP-ish. 65 EP for, now I got to check my math, see if I was actually good at that. 87 times 0.75. Boom, 65.25, not bad. So 65.25 would be how much money they would have access to at limited war. When you're at war status, you also incur not limited war, not peacetime, but when you're at war status, you incur war turns. And this is like building up to war exhaustion. And once you get past 20 turns of being at war, you start paying a price for that war. You get down to start experiencing the first stage of war exhaustion, and your economy, instead of getting 100% of it, you go down to 75. And you experience that for up to 10 turns. Then once you pass 30 turns at war, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Also, with these decreased economic gains, you also have some issues around the attitude or the happiness of your various planets. This can negatively impact that. So when you have happy plus planets, we have a spectrum of 5 different stages for attitude for planets: hateful or hostile, unfriendly, indifferent, friendly, and happy. And the happy planets give you an economic bump or boost depending on the planet and depending on the size of the planet. And the opposite is true for being hateful or unfriendly. So something to think about when it comes to how long you want to be at war. All right, with that said, this is where the Hydrans are at. Now, I don't see on the face of it any M ships from the Hydrans, but I would imagine they're getting pretty close as well. Many of the factions in this game must be very, very close to their respective levels of technology. Let's take a minute to go back to the chat and refresh before we dive into the ISC, Carnarvon, and the Klingons. All right, back to the space station. I'm going to take a quick sip, a beverage of the caffeinated goodness. Okay, I see a bunch of chat here. Let's talk about it. All right, so at least 3 empires have deployed M-Tech ships now. This is Big Slow Target talking. That is the Klingons, the Lyrans, and I don't know of the third. We're going to have to find the third here in a momento. I don't know the ones that come to mind. This is just me guessing before I've actually looked. I'm going to guess out of the 3, the potential 3 they are. So it's not the Tholians as far as I've seen. It's not the Hydrans as far as I've seen. It's not the Kzinti. So we've got the Lyrans and the Klingons. Who is that third person, that third faction that has MTech ships? I'm not sure who it is. Who do you think it is, or have you already seen it? If you have, if you're a player and you've seen the map and you know what's going on, let me know in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just have to keep guessing as we go here. All right, Lost Muskrat has fired the coffee our way. Our goal is 5 coffees. That's sort of like the goal for every live stream. And I know many of viewers are part of our Coffee and Discord tier. Coffee and Discord is the level of coffee support where it's less of a one-time shot and more of an ongoing subscription. And with the Coffee and Discord tier, you also get to join us on our Discord channel. You have a quick link to get there and join us there. And those who support us on Coffee are first up for when we start up new campaigns. We currently have 2 campaigns ongoing. And we'll see how that evolves going forward. As you can see, if you've been following along any of the videos on the channel, these campaigns have a bit of a life to them in the sense that they can go on for as many as a year plus. So there's lots of, these games they don't have quick turnaround, shall we say. So when you get in as a coffee supporter, you're really getting in to be able to say, hey, I want to build a relationship with the community and get in on that next game whenever it starts. And that was the whole reason why we started this channel to begin with, was to be able to build the player base and the community and for all of us to have fun together. So that's what's going on. Bill said around this time to make sure you hit the like button. I can see we have 7 likes of our current... we were at double digits before. We've fallen down to 8 now, but those of you who are watching live as of right now. Chuck answers our question about the Scout. That Scout has a EW of 2, but the only Lyran 4 EW ship is the SR with a Scout. Oh, with a Scout pallet. So, interesting. So the Lyrans are one of only a few factions that can build a basically a tug pod that has EW functions on it. So there is basically a tug that can tow a pallet that has as much as 4 EW, which is very interesting. Bill says, Fed Vulcan YSVC you can get at the start of the game is a survey scout. The GSC, the Galactic Survey Cruiser, is the Big Daddy scout carrier, 4 EW and 6 fighters. That's a Federation ship, by the way. And of course the Federation Scout. So there's a bunch of different scout options for the Federation. Bill, in this game, as many of you know, the Federation of Planets has a number of different factions that make it up. And so in this game, in the early era, the W era, by example, you can be a number of those originating species. You can be the Andorians, excuse me, humans, Vulcans, and each have a sort of a different advantage. Vulcans, their big thing is EW. Their ships are incredibly weak in the early area, but they do have EW, and they have some certain tech advantages when it comes to that. There's also, yeah, okay. And then Del has joined us from across the pond. So that's what that looks like. And I guess we'll be sliding back here momentarily. Question for you. So we've already got the question out there around who do you think is the third faction with M ships? We'll find them in a moment. But what do you think is the consequence of unveiling these M ships for the different factions? We have a rather large alliance in the north, affectionately known as the CLI, Carnarvon, Lyran, and ISC, and they are all at they were all at Y-Tech. The Lyrans are now at M-Tech in that trifecta. So how is that going to, if anything, change the nature of those relationships? The Klingons are at M-Tech, and now the Lyrans are. Is that going to become an issue with regards to the Lyrans and the Klingons? Will the arrival of M-Tech embolden the Lyrans to perhaps move south and engage with some of the factions down below, either the Federation or the Kzinti? And of course, there's the Borak. How quickly are they going to mow down the Borak? So there's so many options as far as neighbors that the Lyrans have with their M-Tech. So they got the Klingons, the Carnarvon, the Borak, the Federation, and the Kzinti. So 5 different neighbors. How is the arrival of M-Tech going to unsettle or stabilize the nature of the relationships that they have? Who knows? Keeping in mind, the Lyrans have the third largest military in the game at the moment. So with M ships and the third largest fleet in the game, I don't know, that seems like a pretty potent combo. Of course, they are surrounded by the Carnarvon and the Klingons, who each are 1 and 2 respectively when it comes to economy, and then of course military. They're the top 2 across the game. Anyway, all right, let's take this memento, slide over to the ISC, and work our way across the top of the map, talking about the ISC, the Carnies, and the Klingons. Here we go. All right, so here we are. The ISC, big boys in yellow here. You can see we've got a couple things. So let's go around the top. Around the top, we have 2nd, 6th, 4th, 8th. These are all exploration fleets and building out sort of their infrastructure in this way. As we close in around the top, you can see we've got Order Fleet guarding their wormhole. This is the H wormhole is the one that goes to the Feds. So we can see that there. ISC Order Fleet, named echelons. Order, you can see light cruiser, destroyer, and a total of 4 frigates, along with a YDK on this hex. Good to go. We also have the Foxtrot wormhole. We're going to go down there in a second because a ship came through. But they have Destiny Fleet, which is a command cruiser, destroyer. They're doing R&D on wormhole tech. And, of course, they have 5 frigates guarding this wormhole with a YDK. And then, of course, this is in close proximity to their capital. You can see there's a couple R&D teams here. And looks like a convoy with 18 EP embarked. Interesting. Incidentally, this Foxtrot wormhole, if we scroll down and slide over, just so you can see, right by my head there, a tug has gone through the wormhole. Interesting to note. So that tug has gone through the wormhole. It is not crippled, so that sort of gives you a hint. The different tiers of technology when it comes to wormhole tech, you will reach a level where you basically don't get crippled when you go through wormholes, and then after that you can get to a point where you can draw supply through wormholes, and then of course and then increase the number of ships you can bring through a wormhole in any one particular battle round. Because as we saw with the Borak invading Paravian space, it's not infrequent that wormholes become a focal point of conflict, and they have to be well defended. And if they're not, well, you can be like the Paravians dealing with the Borak, doing what they're doing. So, just something to think about. Merchant of Death devices. That's what Bill says. Interesting. So yes, tug here. Let's scroll up and back over. And what do we have here? We got 3rd Fleet, 5th Fleet, 10th Fleet. Again, all this exploration. Where's the meat and potatoes, Tony? Oh man, like a whole bunch of stuff didn't move. Okay, well, I'll have to talk about, yeah. Okay. So we've got Judgment Fleet here. What's going on here? Okay, so we got Judgment Fleet here, Law Fleet, and so on. Let's take a look. ISC, named echelons, and we've got Judgment and Law Fleet. So Law Fleet, you can see, is a command cruiser, light cruiser, frigate, 2 crippled frigates. Interesting. Wonder where they must have interacted with. There was a raider in this neck of the woods recently, so they must have popped that. And Law and Judgment. Judgment is a CA and a DD, so that's the collection there. They also have Home Fleet sitting on. Oh, I thought there was a YDK there for some reason. So there's Home Fleet. Let's take ISC Home Fleet. We can see Home Fleet is their big Kahuna burger. It is a DN3, a CA with 2 CLs, 2 destroyers, and 2 frigates with a Vulcan scout, and 3 prime teams embarked. We also have a tug with Providence Fleet. So Providence, is that in here? Providence is a cruiser, destroyer, and 2 frigates. And then we have Truth and Enforcement. So Truth is a cruiser, light cruiser, destroyer. And then Enforcement is a command cruiser and a destroyer sitting on this planet with a hospital ship. And then we have a frigate here and Whiskey 18 here. So in this past turn, there was an interesting interaction. As you can see, the Borak, they were pulling back. So we had the intent was to put frigates or ships in these 3 hexes. So there's 2 planets here. There's a planet here, there's a planet here, and there's a resource here. So the intent was to put frigates in the resource and in this line. Why do that? One of the challenges with the way the ISC is advancing is that they had restricted the flow of EP with the presence of their ships. They sort of blocked supply. So if we have ships adjacent to or in the hexes of the supply route towards the capital, then all those EP should flow without issue, as long as they can respond with reaction movement. And so the intent was moving ships into all these hexes so there would be no issue or problem with all the EP making its way to where it needs to go. This has since been clarified with the GM, but that was the intent. Now, I don't know how exactly, because we do movement with regards to spreadsheets, so I'm not sure if it was a typo or a cut and paste error, which again would be a typo, but whatever. These frigates moved to this hex in Whiskey 18 instead of X-Ray 18 for some reason. And so they engaged the ISC. Now, don't get me wrong, the ISC are being a little overzealous when it comes to taking territory. Obviously, they have liberated these resources, but they don't have possession of them. The difference being the yellow resources when they have possession of, the white and blue are the ones they've just sort of removed from Borak control. And so as a result, they're just denying the resource as opposed to taking control of it. And so anyways, the ship moved in there, engaged it, and moved back. Now, the Borak didn't fire a shot, not a single phaser, fire, photon, whatever. But obviously the ISC did, because you'll notice that one of these ships is crippled. So there'll be some repair work happening here, and then they will go on their merry way. But it'll be interesting to see how this evolves going forward over the next couple of turns. So that's our friends with the ISC. We scroll back up here and slide over. We will look at the Carnarvon. So the Carnarvon, as you can see here on their homeworld, we have CCCA, all Y-era ships. Denfleet. Let's look at Denfleet. Have the Carnies got M ships? No, not yet. Okay. So we got a CA drone bombardment cruiser, 3 destroyers, 2 frigates, R&D team, and some convoys, commercial convoys with EP embarked. Okay. That's what's going on there. We have a gravity well. I don't remember seeing this gravity well before, so I feel like it's new in Lima 9. Interesting to note. Gravity wells, so we have wormholes, and there are 3 varieties of wormholes. There is the 2-way wormhole, which you can go in and out of. And there's 2 different varieties of 1-way wormholes. Innies, where you can jump in and get spat out the other end, which is what this is in Lima 9, based on the triangles pointing in. And then there's outies. These are just my terms. Outies, which are exit points of innies. So that would be the opposite of what's being depicted here, which would be the base of the triangle being towards the center and the points sticking out. I think I can cycle it to... There you go. That would be the equivalent of an outie. This would be a 2-way wormhole, and that, again, is an innie. So that's what that looks like. All right. So let's look at the ships. We'll go in the bottom, go over the top, come around clockwise, and come back to the center here. Wow, all those ships, none of those ships moved. Okay. I must have the wrong copy of the map because I'm noting all that stuff hasn't moved. You let me know, players. Are you seeing things that are different? We shall see. Okay, so we have the, above my head here, we have the YSR. And as we move up, I'll move my head to the other side just so it's a little bit easier to see. And you can see there is very little, if anything, on the border with the Carnarvon. We've got Wolfpack 4 here, which is a token force. If we pull up the Carnarvon Wolfpacks, so 1, 2, 3, 4, there's a DD with a total of 4 frigates. 4 frigates? No, 6 frigates. 6 frigates. It's Wolfpack 4 with 6 frigates. There we are. Sitting there. We scroll over the top. We've got some planetary ground bases. Wolfpack 3, as you can see, up there trying to explore that fog of war hex. It's a cruiser, command cruiser, drone bombardment, and a boat ton, 10 of them, of frigates. We scroll over the top. You can see we've got the planet of Eye. Sauron obviously lives there. And YSRs and large survey freighters doing their business up onto the border area with the ISC. Down here, we've got tugs and YSRs and large exploration freighters continuing to peck away at the fog of war hexes. And then, of course, the same in the space between the Carnies and the Lyrans. But let's focus on down here. Now, this is all I can say is that the Borak area here does not represent what was in the movement sheet. So I feel like I must have the wrong map, or regardless, have to clarify it with our GM. But all of this stuff is not where it should be, with the exception of some of the Carnivon ships. So, for example, we have a number, maybe... I don't know. We have a number of ships here. We have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 captured Carnivon ships. So those are sitting here on this Borak YDK. And interesting, Emerald Fleet, which is a Carnivon fleet, has moved in and captured this YBS. So a couple of things about capturing bases. There's arguably 2 different ways you could do it. There is no rule currently in Federation Empire, the game, that I'm aware of, where you can capture a base station of any type. You can capture ships, but I'm not familiar with any rule that says you can capture a base station. The only way you can capture a base station is if it's voluntarily surrendered. So you can take possession of a base station, and then once you have, then you have the base station. But in order for it to be used for its offensive and defensive firepower, repair capacity, and logistical point, you need to convert it. And there's a table in our player info sheet that talks about converting bases and various other things to your technology. Think of it like when in DS9, when the Federation took control of DS9 from the Cardassians, and there was all this confusion and ridiculousness about trying to manage even just the basic operations of the station. Everything was in Cardassian, so they needed to change the control panels and learn the systems and what have you. So in order to be able to convert all that to a system and a way that you can operate it, you need to invest some money, and it takes a turn or two, and you convert it over. And I believe I'll have to clarify this. I'm not sure if you require a tug to do that, or whether you can just do it with once you have possession of the base. I think you can just do it. I don't know that you need a tug. But regardless, the reason why I ask about the tug is because in order to repair a base station, you need a tug once it's crippled in order to repair it. It can't self-repair after it's been crippled. So that's sort of like the idea there. So that gives you a sense as to how base transfers work in the context of this game. You cannot capture them, but they can be sort of handed over to you. So very clearly, it would seem here that the Borak, for one reason or another, have handed over a base station to the Carnivon. Why on earth would they do that? We'll have to discuss. At the same time, though, of course, the Carnivons have handed over 5 frigates. Why are they doing that? Well, figure that out. What do you think? What do you think is going on? Did they swap a base for 5 frigates? It seems like a weird trade. We'll have to see. So anyways, Emerald Fleet, Sapphire Fleet. Let's take a look at some of these Carney fleets. So the Emerald Fleet, which is the big one down there. Holy Dinah, look at that big fleet. So heavy dreadnought, or dreadnought I should say. It's a 5-8 for the Carnies. 3 command cruisers. A total of 7 heavy cruisers. 3 light cruisers. 9 destroyers, 14 frigates, Jesus, 2 drone bombardment cruisers, and a drone bombardment destroyer. That's a lot of ships. That's nothing to sneeze at. And then, of course, you've got Sapphire Fleet here, which is command cruiser, 3 cruisers, 3 heavy cruisers, 2 drone bombardment cruisers, 2 destroyers, and 4 frigates. Not as big as Emerald, for sure, but not nothing. And then, of course, up here we've got Ruby, Home, and Diamond. Again, the Carnies have over 200 ships. Wow. Diamond, Ruby, and Home, was it? Home Fleet, jeez. And Home Fleet. So this is what's sitting on this hex up here. We've got another dreadnought, a bunch of command cruisers, there's a crippled cruiser there, 1, 4, 7 cruisers, a drone bombardment cruiser, 4 of them, drone bombardment destroyers, looks like 5 of them, 4 destroyers, and then a total of 11 plus 13, 24, oh my God, 37 frigates. Whew. That's a lot of stuff. Writ large, that is a lot of stuff. All right. So that's what we're looking at here when it comes to the state of the Carnarvon in proximity to the Borak. Again, the borders of the Borak territory are continuing to shrink more and more and more. The borders of the Carnarvons, the Lyrans, and the ISE continue to grow and grow and grow. The Carnarvon, the Borak are very clearly in an existential dilemma where they are struggling to survive. And so where do they put their energies? Do they put their energies in the effort to defend territory that they currently have in the north, or retreat into territory they're liberating in the south? It's such a challenging position. It's yeah. What do you think should happen? Do you think the Borak should somehow stand up and fight? Because keeping in mind, the Carnarvon have 200 plus ships. The ISC have almost 100, and the Lyrans have over 100. So if you combine them all, there are something like 400 ships that they have, and the Borak have 65. That's a tough fight. And again, in previous live streams, we talked about the 3 economies and the 3 productions, like centers of production, versus the one, which is the Borak. Can you defend against one versus, it's a huge thing. It's a huge dilemma, and how do you deal with it? And very obviously the Borak solution to the challenge was to relocate and engage in someone that they could have a fair chance at dealing with, which was the Paravians. So we'll see how that all works out. Let's go to the Klingons. All right. You can't see it in the very top left because of the way the screen is cropped, but in the very top left, just beyond this cursor, there is a D4E with a prime team. So exploring the very top left corner of the map. Great. So with force supply, the Klingons are going to slowly work across this top section. Look at that top left corner over there. And you'll see there's all this fog of war on the very top. They're going to have an exploration ship work its way across there. We have a logistics fleet 001. I'll be curious to see what's in that, because you have an auxiliary cruiser or something that is popped in there and could be a little bit of an issue. Let's see. Logistics fleets. Logistics squadron number 1, here we are, is an E1T with a small exploration freighter. So I don't see this going anybody's way as far as the Klingons, because there's no offensive firepower here, and this ship can do damage. Okay. We talked about the wormhole and the comparison of 60 ships and twice the offensive firepower on the Klingon side. Same defense factors. And then as we'll go across the top and come around the bottom. So we go around the top, we can see a very sparse ship placement, just like Green Fleet, whatever Green Fleet is, probably something relatively minor. I think it's Martok. Yep. So as you can see here, Green Fleet is 2 F4s and 3 E1Ts. nothing to sneeze at, nothing to worry about for sure. Scroll down here, we got Blue Fleet, again, probably just a token security force. Notice the M-era commercial convoy going this way. I'm not sure why there's a commercial convoy there, but either way. There's Vindicator Fleet. Ooh, Vindicator, what a name. Let's look at Vindicator. Is it a... No, that's Invincible. Where is Vindicator? Huh. We've got, oh, there it is. Battle Group Vindicator. Okay, Vindicator is, this fleet right here is a total of 3 D6Ms and a total of 6 E4Ms. So quite a little squadron there, moving its way down. And then along the Lyran border, so this is where the majority of all the Klingon forces were. There was Andromedans that had popped up in this area, so understandably they'd moved a bunch of ships into this area. And then, of course, the south is where all the Klingon ships are. From right to left, let's look. We've got, F4, E2, E3, D4, D6M, second, Joint Task Force Alpha, West Fleet, first. Okay, let's pull up some of these so we can see what's in them. We've got Imperial War Reserve 1, Imperial War Reserve 2, I believe. Yeah, so these 2 War Reserves are there, which is basically just a bunch of F4s, so a total of 5 F4s. Then we had West Fleet and Joint Task Force Alpha. Those are the big ones there. So Joint Task Force Alpha. You can see here that's a Dreadnought with another 4 F4s. And then... was it home? West Fleet, excuse me. West Fleet from the House of Martok. It's just another F4. So it's sort of deceptive. There is a ton of counters on this hex, not necessarily a lot of ships. You've got 1, 5, 7, 10. So you got 10 F4s with a C4. So that's a total battle group all by itself. And then beyond that group of 11 ships, you've got an E2, an E3, an F4, so 11 F4s, a D4, and then a D6M and another F4. So total of 12 F4s, a D6M, a D4, a Dreadnought, and then the E2 and the E3. So it looks more than it is just based on the stacking. But it's not as bad as it looks, so to speak, as far as danger, Will Robinson danger. Here we have a couple of E2s guarding a convoy. D6E, which is a survey ship with a crippled D4, probably the encounters with the Andromedans. We've got a tug embarked with 9 EP. That's interesting. Wonder what's going on there. We've got some more Y-era tugs, which are what the T4s are. They're Y-era tugs. Bunch of them down this way. They can still provide extended supply and build bases. No problems there. North Fleet, Expeditionary Fleet, Northwest, and Red, I believe, are all just assisting, as all these M ships are, in trying to push exploration as far into this southwest corner as possible. Why? Well, obviously, they're trying to push around the edge of their established neutral zone and continue moving south. Because if they continue moving south, you can see there is a black and white, or white and black, respectively, faction down there that they can say hello to. I have a feeling like the Klingons are itching for a fight. We'll have to see what happens. Okay, that's the Klingons, that's the Carnies, that's the ISC, and let's finish this off with the final 2, the Borak and the Paravians. Okay, so we talked about the Borak quickly, in the sense of this territory here. We talked about where everything is. Now, some of these units should have moved in a certain direction. I don't believe they moved in the direction that was desired, unless something changed. So I'll have to just double check with the GM. But as you can see, there's a bunch of stuff that's moved around. Interesting note that I've just recently found out. When it comes to EP and tugs, you can move a tug onto your capital during your operational movement phase. You cannot deposit the money, so to speak. You can't offload the money until your economics phase. This is a discussion I had with our GM. So, for example, what does that mean? Let's say today is turn 71, and let's say, so for this turn we've got this tug and this YTD. They were both captured ships in control of the Borak, and they want to move. So if I want to move these ships, let's say, onto the homeworld, I'll move them onto the homeworld, but it's not like I can move them onto the homeworld and the money gets deposited automatically. I move them onto the homeworld, I have to wait till turn 72 to deposit at the start of the economics phase. Does that make sense? So it's sort of a sequencing issue. And you can't transfer money until it arrives at the capital. It's not like you can drop it off at a YDK or some other base and disperse it into your local economy. It has to go to the capital. So when you're transferring money between factions, you have to use, well, obviously something that can transport money, so tugs, convoys, and various other things. Theater transports can move a certain amount of money as well, but you can't deposit the money until it's arrived at the place in question, which is sort of frustrating. You know what I mean? All right, and moving along here into the Borak and Paravian space. All right, what do we see here? This turn that just finished, there were a series of bases in the south. I'll move ships out of the way so you can see. There was a bunch of bases in the south here that enabled access to all these resources for the Paravians, and we popped them. So the Borak blew out a bunch of bases. So what does that mean? If the Paravians have 4 supply, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, that means that these 4 hexes of resources are out of supply for the Paravians. So while their economy might be 53, their actual take-home revenue is only 49, respectively. And of course, it opens up the opportunity to take these resources from the Paravians. Paravians have 3 bases in the south here, and then of course everything on the west side. And if you look in the north, we'd popped a base that was in and around this area here. Let's bring the ships back. And of course, you've got a base. Well, I'll bring that back. So you got bases here in this sort of straight line up and down the India column. And then of course, bases sort of in this area with a bunch of YDKs in the top right hand corner of their space. So what's going on here? Like what's the premise? So as in the last episode, and I'll slide back to my main face so you can say hi. So as we were talking about, there is chit chat there. So as we were discussing, in the last live stream, we talked about the battle that occurred on the Paravian homeworld. And the initial understanding, because, this is the first time a capital has fallen this early in the game, and just making sure the rules around it are all clear. So, and the unique situation that's never occurred in any other game, whereas a faction is essentially looking to transplant, like move from one location to another, move their capital, and so on. So one of the issues had been that when you take out an enemy's capital, that there is a period of time before they can establish a new one. There's a series of rules in the Federation Empire rule set called the continuity of government. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but we discussed it briefly in the last episode. So in that episode, we talked about there was 6 turns that you needed to invest money to be able to relocate your capital. And at the time of the combat that happened, we originally thought that was going to be the rule set that was applied. After the capital was taken and the decisions were made around that, there was a slight change in those rules, which just fundamentally changed the strategy around taking out the Paravians. So previously, the strategy or the tactic had been decapitation. Go in, take out the head of government, and because you had done that, there would be sort of a grace period to be able to recover before you'd have to engage them again. That, obviously, based on last live stream, that's not the case. So the Paravians have reestablished a new capital right next to their old one, and it's fully operational right away. Now, they still have to build slipways, which cost money. But as soon as they build a slipway, they can build ships. So they've been building slipways and producing ships as quickly as possible. And they went from having, I think, like 4 ships to a fleet of over 20 now. And they're continuing to build ships quickly. And specifically, their ships, the disposition of their ships, as far as their combat capability, Paravians just have sort of better ships, especially the frigates. They're 2-3s, 2 attack, 3 defense, versus the Borak's 1-3. So that just means that the entire strategy has changed. Instead of go in, hit them hard, take out the leaders or the decapitation strategy, you got to do something else. So now there is a shift in strategy, so that instead of decapitating them, we have to starve them out. So it's more like a siege. And in the process of a siege, you need to deny the person being sieged all their food, water, and other kinds of resources. Well, in this case, basically we're going to engage in a protracted series of attacks to eliminate their supply, eliminate their resources, and in the process grow our own, to be able to build up a fleet sufficient enough to be able to assault their hard point, which is their current capital, right next to their old capital. And just going to have to hit it hard and take it out. And it's going to take a bit. The siege strategy is far longer lived, or takes a lot longer than obviously the decapitation strategy. It's just a matter of how well it gets executed and how much resistance is put up by the Paravians in the process. There's going to be new sort of ships and tools and things that as technology changes. I am awaiting for the Paravians to establish or have M ships, and who knows, maybe they're the third faction to have M ships. All right, let's pull up Vulture Fleet and see what they've got in bird fleets. Vulture. Okay. So I will show you what the Paravians have, and we will go from there. Sliding over. All right, the Paravians here, you can see, have a total of 3 cruisers, 5 frigates, 3 crippled frigates, and a tug on their homeworld, or at least in Vulture Fleet. In addition, they have another 3 frigates, and they have a crippled frigate and a frigate on top of the former Paravian homeworld. So this is the fleet that they have in the vicinity of Paravia. As you can see, there is a constellation of ships around, Borak ships around the Paravians. And so the crippled ships that you see here are a direct result of the attacks that were executed and the bases that were destroyed just recently. And there'll be further attacks that will be made here shortly. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, we'll just see how this goes. Like I say, this is going to be a long, protracted effort, and we'll just have to take it one step at a time. So that's the Paravians. As you can see, as we roll around the rest of their territory, they have very few ships. The bulk of what we just described, which is on their capital in Vulture Fleet, and then, of course, on the former capital. But what else do they have in the vicinity? They have a frigate down south with a diplomat trying to make this planet nice and happy. Over in the far east, they have some large exploration freighters and a YSR. And then in the north, which is this little concentration of ships here, we have a crippled frigate, a YBS, and a YCA. So those are the ships that are, or those are the fleets that are sort of blocking things. I'm not sure, to be fair, I don't know if the YFELs are being counted as ship equivalents in their ship count, but we have, like you can see here, 4 of them at the very top of the map. So this is what's going on here. You can also see, just as a little sort of note, these white and blue units. So while the Borak took these planets, we didn't leave ships on them or units on them to sort of hold them. And so as a result, they go neutral and sort of independent. So we'll sort that out and what have you. It's just a matter of concentrating the certain number of ships that you have and using them as you need to use them. You've only got so many resources. You got to prioritize. So with that said, that is the current state of the Paravians. We've already talked about the Borak, and that, I believe, we've talked about the Klingons, the Carnies, the ISC. We've talked about the Kzinti. We have not talked about the Federation. Let's talk about the Feds real quick. All right, you can see the Feds here are neighbors to the south and the north, respectively, and of course, right beside the Kzinti. Excuse me. All right, so we have continued trade with the Lyrans. That's this column here. Task Force CostNet, which is the sort of balance relative to the forces that were in this vicinity. You have a bunch of fleets doing exploration in the north and along the edges of their space. 3 points of note with the Federation. And although I'm going to look at Task Force Rady, maybe... No, just a bunch of CLs. I'm like, maybe they got to MTech. I don't know. All right, so a couple notes. One, down here, there's a commercial convoy heading to a Paravian YDK to establish trade or reinforce trade with the Paravians. You can see that there is a trade route established with their new capital. So that's what this trade route is. It's kind of an interesting route in this way. So they have a trade route there. You can see that they have a trade route to the Romulan planet in the left corner here, and they are trying to, I would imagine, improve the planetary attitude with the diplomat and EP that is going that way. We talked about this during the Hydron turn, just above my head here, over there. We've got 7th, 3rd Expeditionary, and 2nd Fleet. These are all survey ships or all survey fleets trying to explore space, and we've got a YBS here being built by this tug to establish contact with the Hydrons. How the Hydrons and the Feds will get along going forward, who knows? This is the wormhole that goes to the ISC space, the hotel wormhole. And you can see they're guarding it with a YBS, a YCA, a light cruiser, and 2 frigates. So there's a lot going on sort of here. Interesting to note, the Federation at this point are not really a big military force in the game. They're kind of just here. Not like they're taking up space and not doing anything. They certainly are exploring and working to sort of like make things better for themselves. But it's interesting that the Federation are not attracting a lot of heat and light, not a lot of attention to what it is they're doing. So, because they're not doing a lot, really. They're just exploring and slowly growing. And, to be fair, that's a good strategy. If you remember from our graph, and I'll slide over to the graph, they are number 3 on the economy list. Like, top to bottom, it's inverted when it comes to our table over there. The Federation are number 3 on the econ list. And at 97 EP, they are a significant delta or difference between the Kzinti. Granted, they're not over 100, but give it time, they'll be there. They are the 3rd largest economy in the game. Now, granted, they don't have a military to match, but, if you start a fight with the Feds, I'm sure you'll find out very quickly how potent their economy can be. So these are just things to think about when it comes to where we're at in the game. And let's slide back to the chat. All right. So Smitty says, YDK has been purchased from Borak. Gunfire, I'm assuming that's at YFSFs. We thought we were being attacked, and GM did not deliver the message of, hey, that's our resource, until after shots were fired and everything was resolved. So there was a, shall we say, from a role-playing perspective, of an overzealous captain decided to flex in a spot where he shouldn't have flexed, realized he was in over his head, and backed away. And the ISC said, go pound sand, and fired in with full effect. So this is the sort of the challenge when you have ships operating in close proximity to each other. Things can happen. Obviously, that's a real-world sort of metaphor for an in-game situation, but typos happen, especially when you're trying to do things quickly, and so that's a perfect example of how things sort of go the wrong way. So those are things to think about, fun things to consider, but what do you think? We are now an hour and a half into this broadcast. We've done the turn, or we've talked about all the different factions during the turn. What do you think? When it comes to the Lyrans and the discovery of MTech and deploying MTech ships, what do you think the impact or effect will be on their neighbors? How long do you think it will be until all the other factions start popping out M ships? Because keeping in mind that it's a combination of how much money and resources you've invested in research and development to get to various levels of technology. The earlier you do it, the faster you get it. And it compounds, sort of. Then there's the variety of different ships that you have available to build. Certain factions are better in MTech than others. Every different faction sort of has its has its sweet spot. I would argue that the Hydrons and MTech are probably the most potent of all the factions. When we get to GW Tech, Gorn and ISC are pretty ridiculous as well. Everyone's good, but everyone's got their different sort of forte. So how long do you think until the other factions get there? The Carnies, knowing that they spent a lot of money building ships early to build a big fleet, become the largest military that they are, did that sacrifice R&D money that they could have spent early on, as opposed to the ISC, which very clearly have a small number of ships and small sort of footprint? Where did all their money go? Did they spend it into R&D and developing tech? And if that's the case, you would almost expect them to have MTech by now. What's going on? Klingons, obviously they have MTech. They're moving fast and furious. They've got the largest economy in the game. The Tholians, they've had some struggles. The Federation, they've had lots of money for a long time. Where are they at? And of course, all the other factions that are going on. In the fight between the Borak and the Paravians, one of the biggest concerns is, when do the Paravians get MTech relative to when the Borak get it? For example, if the Paravians get it early or earlier than the Borak, how is that going to imbalance or displace the balance of the combat? The longer the fight goes between the Paravians and the Borak, in my opinion, that benefits the Paravians more. Their M-era ships, just for reference, are sort of like GW ships because of the lack of depth in the sort of menu catalog of different factions. When it comes to the Klingons and the Federations and the Romulans, by example, they have an unbelievable variety of ships because they're the most flushed out factions. But factions like the Paravians and even the Carnivons, they don't have that same depth of discovery or mapping out of what they had or have. So basically, when we get to M-era, Carnivon and Paravian ships, by example, are pretty much GW ships. That being said, they'll have the advantage in M, but they might lose it in GW, if you know what I mean. So lots of things to think about, but what do you think? Who's going to be the next faction to get M ships? There was a third faction, apparently, that has MTech. Where are they? I obviously missed them. Who is that third faction with MTech ships? We'll have to figure that out. You let me know in the comments. Who's got the MTech ships? What did I not see? And how are we going forward? Before I go, two things I got to ask you. One is, tell two friends. If you like this show, you've watched us up to an hour and a half here, then certainly you must, to some degree, enjoy what we're doing. So tell two friends about it. If you haven't already hit subscribe, be like Alder Freck there and hit the subscribe button. And of course, if you want to join us in the banter, the witty back and forth, and the narrative storytelling that goes along in our Discord channel, then please head over to coffee.com/New Worlds, and you can join us at the Coffee Discord tier and join us there on the Discord channel. So with that being said, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next Saturday. Ciao for now.